Hello, so in this video we're taking a look at what it's like to take a driving test during COVID-19. Do you need to wear a face covering? How will the test be done differently? Well, I'm going to go over all those things and more, and I've got this official government document here which I'm going to read through, and I'll link to this in the description. So it says car driving tests will restart in England on the 22nd of July 2020. Now they have been doing them over the last few months anyway for emergency key workers, and I'd like to hear from anyone who's taken one. Please leave a comment to let me know what it was like. But let's read through this. It's quite long, but there's lots of information, and if you've got a test coming up soon, this page will be updated if any new information comes through. So it says car driving tests will restart in England on Wednesday the 22nd of July 2020 with new social distancing and safety precautions in place. These will only be for people who had their driving tests cancelled because of coronavirus to begin with. Driving tests are still suspended in areas under local lockdown in England, Scotland and Wales. So there is separate guidance for the theory tests which I've already been through, and there's a link in this document to that. But let's skip through to arrange your driving test appointment. If your car driving test was cancelled due to coronavirus, you were sent an email with a new date and time for your test. Very important, the new date you were given will not go ahead. So if you've had a test date given to you over the last few weeks, let's say you've got one booked on July 28th or whatever, you haven't, that test will not go ahead. All tests that were booked are being rescheduled. Booking a new driving test, you cannot currently book a new driving test if you did not have a test booked before lockdown. So in other words, the only people that can do tests at the moment are people who already had one booked and it got moved because of the virus. And they are going to open up the booking for new tests soon. We don't know when, just say soon. Now this is the main part of this video about what happens when you arrive for your test. When you come for your driving test, do not arrive for your driving test more than 5 minutes before your appointment time. Normally, they say arrive 10 minutes early. The driving test centre waiting room will be closed to help prevent the spread of coronavirus, but the toilets will be available on request. They officially announced this last night. You can still use the toilet if you need to, but it says you need to clean it afterwards, which you should really do anyway. And it says in a big bit of writing here, a big logo, do not arrive more than 5 minutes before your appointment time. Keeping you safe when you take your test. DVSA has introduced social distancing measures and safety precautions. These include driving examiners wearing face coverings. They might also choose to wear gloves and use disposable seat covers. So the examiner may be sitting on a disposable seat cover, and you can do the same if you choose to. Limiting the number of people arriving for a driving test at the same time, so the tests are being staggered, so you won't have a batch of people. There's one centre where I am, it's like a super centre, and they have up to 12 people going at the same time. That won't be happening now. They won't allow your instructor or supervising driver to sit in the back of the vehicle because they don't want 3 people in the car. Wearing a face covering. You must bring and wear a face covering when you come for your test unless you have a good reason not to. This includes if you have a physical or mental illness or impairment, or a disability that means you cannot put on, wear or remove a face covering. Putting on, wearing or removing a face covering would cause you severe distress. You need to remove it during your test to avoid harm or injury, or the risk of harm or injury to yourself or others. So there are times they'll allow you to take a test without a face covering, but for the majority of the time you need to wear one. You need to say if you have a good reason not to wear a face covering when you arrange your test, so you must tell them in advance. And it says again, some of these points are written in big text, so it kind of emphasises these points. Your test will be cancelled if you come for your test without a face covering and you did not declare that you could not wear one when you arranged your test. So you must take a face covering not a face mask. It doesn't have to be a proper mask, just a covering, like you can make them out of t-shirts and whatever. You will need to remove your face covering. You will need to remove your face covering briefly so your driving examiner can check your ID. So I didn't know that. That's a new one on me. You've got to remove the covering. That's me. Probably don't say that's me, just don't speak. They are recommended you don't speak much at all because of, spreading the virus through speaking. And there is a link on how to make a cloth face covering, and it says again in big writing, bring and wear a face covering unless you have a good reason not to. So very important that I can confirm for the first time, yes, you have to take along a face covering unless you've got one of those problems we mentioned. During your driving test, if you have a problem with your face covering during the test, your driving examiner will ask you to stop so you can adjust it. Your driving examiner will end the test early if it becomes a safety issue. So if your mask is kind of getting wrapped around your throat or you're swallowing it or whatever, they will end the test. If you make a mistake, you can carry on if you make a mistake during your driving test. If you make a serious or dangerous fault, which means you failed, that's interesting. They don't normally use the word fail. They normally avoid using that word, but it says, which means you failed. Your driving examiner will direct you back to the driving test centre where the test will end. This is to minimise the amount of time you need to spend in the vehicle. Now, we don't normally do this, and people ask, why do you carry on with tests even if you make a mistake? This is something I'll need to make a whole video about on its own, but quite simply the reason is we don't like to teach people that if you make a mistake, give up. Because what message does that send to new drivers? That if you're out on the road and you make a mistake, just give up. That's not the message we want new drivers to have. So it says at the end of your test, your driving examiner will ask you to get out of the vehicle before they give you your test result feedback. So you must leave the vehicle before you get the feedback. Ask if you want your instructor to come over to listen to the feedback if it's safe to do so. And again, that's to minimise the length of time. And although it doesn't say this in this document, it's a good point to know. You should not have any contact with the examiner. Now, when people pass tests, they can be very excited, very happy, and sometimes they lean over and hug the examiner or kiss them. I've seen that happen. You mustn't do that. Keep yourself away from the examiner, please. Have no contact with them. That is unnecessary. It didn't say anything about having windows open, but I'm sure you would have to have the windows slightly down. Maybe that's coming later on. Let me just scan down. I don't think it does say later on, no. But I think they're going to recommend having the windows down. And I know if you start coughing excessively, if it's a dry cough, not a normal cough like hay fever, if it's a dry, constant cough, they will end the test early. If the test is ended early and you are guided back to the test centre, they will not tell you that. They won't say, you failed, we're going back. They'll just guide you back without telling you that. So, when you must not come for your test. You must not come for your driving test if you or someone you live with has coronavirus symptoms. You've been told by the NHS Test and Trace Service that you've been in contact with a person who has coronavirus, or if you've returned to the UK within the last 14 days from certain countries and territories. And he goes on to say, you can change your driving test free of charge. This is good, big news. Even if you change it to the last minute, if you can't make it and you get ill the day before, or your instructor's ill, or the examiner's ill, you can change the test and cancel it, move it, whatever. I don't know exactly what the term is. You can change it. It doesn't say you can cancel it. You can change it, even if it's only a day away, or even if it's on the day of the test. And it says you must not come for your test if you are self-isolating. He goes on to talk about if you're clinically extremely vulnerable, it's saying about you should take your test after the 1st of August when shielding will be paused. And a massive point here, I don't want to skip over that, it's really important for all the people out there who've been shielding. There was a time when I thought I had to shield, and it turns out I didn't. But if you've got certain medical things, you may have to shield, and I do feel for those people. So yeah, good point for them. You can take your test from the 1st of August if you are shielding. They recommend that. Now let's cover the number one question that people have been asking me ever since all this began, and that is, if my theory test certificate expires, will they extend the date? The answer is a clear no. They will not extend the date of your theory test. If your theory test expires, you must pay and take it again. That's it. And I know people get angry about this. Don't get angry at me. It says here, as I've said many times before in this series of videos, which is about 25 videos in this series now, it says legally your theory test certificate cannot be extended in any circumstances. Don't moan at me. If you don't agree with that, contact them, ask them, tell them. Okay, that's how it is. And it says you can book a new theory test up to 6 months before your current one expires. Now there's one more point I'd like to make before I end this video. If you do have a driving test coming up and you would like to increase your chance of passing, check out the video I did, which is a free hypnosis track which can help you pass your driving test. It's very disappointing now that video has only had about 650 views, and that video is like a diamond. People who have used it have said to me, wow, that's incredible. And I think a lot of people just don't believe in hypnosis, and they think, if you don't know, by the way, I'm a hypnotherapist as well as a driving instructor, and hypnosis is real. It's recommended and approved by the NHS. It was actually used in the First and Second World War when we didn't have enough anaesthetic, and soldiers that came back from the war would have their limbs amputated under the power of hypnosis. It's not mumbo jumbo, it's not a load of rubbish, it's not some mystical magic for weird people who believe in stupid things. It's a proven scientific fact. So I urge you, if you want help with your driving test, please go and listen to that track. I designed that specifically to help people who have got trouble with the driving test in terms of nerves and anxiety, and only 650 people have watched it. That video is absolute gold dust. It's a diamond, and if you go and watch it, bear in mind people normally pay me £60 an hour for that kind of therapy, and we're giving it to you for free. So please go and watch it, and it will help you. Check out the other videos on the screen. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you again soon for more videos.